Welcome to the 11:35 session. My name is Nikki Gio, and I'm with the City of Vancouver. I'll be moderating this session, a trip down equity lane, identifying and engaging overburdened communities. And this is a group presentation with HDR in Kitsap County. So please type your questions in the Q&A box. Questions will be answered following the presentation. And with that, I'll let you guys take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Nikki. And thanks for having us here at Municon this morning. I'm Michelle Perdue. I'm the Stormwater Program Manager for Kitsap County. And after all our fabulous environmental justice and equity sessions this morning, I'm really excited to talk to you guys about how Kitsap County is moving forward in that arena. So back in 2018, Kitsap County was looking ahead at the new NPDES permit and determining where we may need to change up our program to meet any new requirements. What we noticed was that we had most of the new permit requirements covered, but one really stopped us cold. And that was the requirement to target our outreach and participation opportunities to a new audience, overburdened communities. Now, our outreach team had discussed things in the past, like the need for materials in additional languages, et cetera, but we really weren't able to put a finger on who was out there that we weren't adequately reaching, what the scope of that need was, or how we should really go about reaching them. We knew we needed help at that point. So fortunately, we had already contracted with HDR to help us work on our stormwater comp plan and our SMAP. So we reached out to them with this new need, and their skilled team was able to swing into action. And joining me today from HDR's CREC team to talk about what we did are Chelsea Collinge, Stacy Thomas, and Vanessa Bauman. Now, at the same time that we were doing this, Kitsap's partners in the West Sound Stormwater Outreach Group, that's the jurisdictions of Bremerton, Bainbridge Island, Gig Harbor, Paulsbo, Port Orchard, and Port Angeles, were also struggling with how to meet the same requirement. We had an existing partnership, and through this partnership, they were able to join into this Overburdened Communities research project with us. And the goals of our project were to analyze the study areas and define just who our overburdened communities are and where they're located, to understand their unique needs and how our traditional outreach might not be adequately reaching them, and to really determine the best ways to engage and reach those populations that may have been missing out on opportunities. And the end result of all of this is a toolbox that each of our jurisdictions can use when crafting our outreach and communications strategies. And that allows us to be more equitable, thorough, and robust in our campaigns and our programs. One of the side bonuses from doing this project, though, was that once it was complete, we really quickly saw that this toolbox was in no means limited to just stormwater. So we've made the move to extend that to the rest of our public works outreach and communications team, as well as a few other of our interested departments and agencies that can use the critical data that's contained in this toolbox. So that's things like human resources, our housing and human services department, our sheriff's department, emergency management, public health, and so on. And with that, let's pass it over to Chelsea to take a look at the toolbox.
Thanks so much, Michelle. So I'm going to basically tee everything up so everybody understands the toolbox and tool we're about to dive in and look into. So basically, let's talk about the methodology. So we took the permit language requirements for identifying and engaging with overburdened communities, but the first question is, where are those populations? So we took a combination of demographic, socioeconomic, environmental, and health data, and also social listening information. So we not only understand who is where, what are their conditions, what does their lifestyle look like, what external factors are impacting their quality of life, but also who is talking about what. And this provides us with a really comprehensive understanding of that community's composition, really. So here are some of the layers, and we basically had a very, very involved metric identification process where we had a workshop with the county and their jurisdictional partners. And we talked about what was really important. What can we be doing to understand an overburdened or define an overburdened area? And so the information in the lower corner are the demographic, socioeconomic, and health and environment data sets that we pulled together and then we deeply analyzed. So combining them and their various geospatial layers into one map that we then can explore. And the reason we do this is because we want to be able to have an intersectional view of every single community, because when you understand a community better, you in turn can communicate and be better in that respective way. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Vanessa Bauman. She's going to dive into the tool, which I hope you all enjoy.
Okay, just give me 1 minute to share my screen. Okay, here we go. I'm going to basically take you on that walk, that trip down equity lane, and we're going to go through the overburdened community assessment story map that we created for Kitsap County. So starting at the top, we just have a general purpose and need of the project, which Michelle covered. And those methods are outlined here, different data sources and metric categories that we use, the demographic, socioeconomic, and health and environment data that Chelsea outlined is included in the story map. And then we jump into the equity atlas. And this is a map series of all of the different metrics that are listed here. And it's a way to explore all of this information in map form. So we start with demographics, and at first we're looking at age. We're looking at the senior population. And how we organize this is that at the top of every layer here, we have in italics a link to the data source. So if you wanted to use this information for GIS purposes, for different analysis, you can easily do so using this data. And then on the left, we have some text that provides a definition of the variable and a little bit of interpretive information about what you see. In the map interface, you can click on the legend and you can see that in black, we're outlining the urban growth areas. In red, we have the tribal areas highlighted. And then here in shades of green, we're looking in this case at senior well-being. We can click to expand the map and view it in full screen. And we can use standard zoom tools to pan around and explore different project areas. And then we can click on a particular census tract and get statistics and metrics to dive into our analysis. So in this case, there are 27.9% of the population would be qualified as seniors, and there's some other metrics listed here. And I will say that in our tool, there is a lot of information included in these pop-ups. In this case, we have some metrics listed, but there could also be charts, multiple charts, just a lot of data reported here. So I encourage people when they use the tool to use those pop-ups. So that's how the Equity Atlas is organized. And then, oh yes, we also have here included a tool to zoom to particular areas because we analyzed several different jurisdictions. Here, for example, I can click on Port Angeles and zoom to that community. So it basically gives us a way to navigate these different areas easily. And so the Equity Atlas, to use it, you just scroll through and it goes layer by layer. Here we're looking at race and ethnicity, and it's organized in the same way. So we have a link to the GIS data if that interests you. We have some contextual information on the left that interprets the information, and you can use the interactive map space. And we go through it one layer at a time. Here is language and English proficiency. And again, you know, what you're doing is you're looking for patterns, geographic patterns in the data. And so in particular, hotspots, what really stands out? So for example, this community here in bright orange near Bremerton, I would click on that and look at the metrics and do some analysis, use the tool. Here's some chart information provided by ACS that I can use. So that's another example. And then we just scroll through the different layers. In the interest of time, I'm going to just kind of roll through these. We have language spoken at home. We have health and ability. This is a disabilities layer. We jump from demographics now to socioeconomics. And of course, poverty status is a critical variable for understanding overburdened communities. So we have that information included here. We're looking at education, employment and income information. We have housing affordability, transportation access. This takes a look at vehicle availability. Internet access, which is a really interesting variable, and I'll give you more information about that in just a bit. And then here we have a socioeconomic index. This one is provided by Washington DOH, and they have created their own tool, which has a lot of data in it, and I encourage you to use that tool, and we've provided a link to it here. And in the map space, we are just showing their socioeconomic index to help highlight those highly vulnerable populations. And just indices can be really useful to have a quick way to, again, find those overburdened populations. You can see them, the spatial distribution of that. And it's important also to consider that every index is using its own combination of metrics to calculate what they would consider highly vulnerable population. And this is the DOH example. And we've included another example of that, which is data provided by the CDC. They use different variables in their analysis. So depending on what your purpose and your project is, either data set might be of use to you. And then jumping to health and environment, we took a look at proximity to pollution, polluted waters. We have another index. This one is talking about health hazard. And then of local interest, we have shellfish harvesting safety information. We have current beach closures. And we've also embedded the state shellfish safety information tool directly in the story map. So you can click and zoom around and look at beach status information, or you can click on this tab and open the tool directly to use that information. So that is an overview of the Equity Atlas, or the map piece of the tool. Next, we jump into a summary of communication strategies that we include. And what we're doing in this section is we're providing information about the general community, or the general population, I should say. And then we're also providing demographic and socioeconomic information about overburdened populations. And we provide communication strategy tools for each. So in the interest of time, once again, I'll just show you the tools. So to describe the general population, we used Esri Tapestry data. And Esri Tapestry, that data set classifies neighborhoods into 67 different segments, and it's based on their socioeconomic and demographic composition. And they've done it in a way that uses nice colors and cute names like senior styles, ethnic enclaves, cozy country living, that type of thing, as a way to just describe different neighborhoods. And these are the different life modes. And then when you dive deeper into the tapestry segments at a more neighborhood level, they provide a verbal description of who these people are, just basic characteristics. You know, these neighborhoods are found in pastoral settings throughout the United States. Consumers are educated, they're empty nesters, they're active, but they live a modest lifestyle. So it's just a way to put into words some of those neighborhood characteristics. Tapestry also provides some socioeconomic traits. There are demographic information, and there are market profile information included in this data. So again, this is used to provide a general characteristic or description of the communities. As another tool, we've also included a comparison table. And this comparison table, it includes all of the metrics that we looked at in the Equity Atlas. And in order to help you dive into the numbers to find those overburdened populations, it provides all that data listed here. It's quite a bit of data, but we have each jurisdiction listed on the left here, but it also provides some benchmarks. So we have Kitsap County, we have the state of Washington, we have the United States. Their metrics listed here also, so that when you take a look at a variable, for example, median household income, you can see what is high, what is low, what is about average. That's a great way to kind of gauge, is this a community that's worth noting, or is it more indicative of the general population? So that's a very useful tool that we've included in the story map. We've also included some snapshot infographics. These infographics detail key facts such as household income, population, some education metrics, at risk such as language variables, transportation. This is a snapshot, and then we've also included a really detailed infographic profile, which I will launch here. It includes those metrics. It includes the tapestry information, so you can start to see some of those neighborhood classifications and the top 3 tapestry segments in this area. We have green acres, the great outdoors, front porches, and again, those are just providing those neighborhood characteristics. The infographic profile provides race and ethnicity data, which are mapped here, and some language proficiency information, and then also the digital profile. This is that map of internet access that I showed you earlier. It also details the device ownership, how people are accessing their internet, what devices are they using, and also their social media usage profile, which can be a really useful way to create your communication strategies. And so in our story map, we provide descriptions of the top 3 tapestry segments for each of the different jurisdictions that we're looking at. We provide a summary of the overburdened population, and we provide some recommended core tools and strategies, both for all of the jurisdictions, for all of the general population, and then also targeting for overburdened as it might be appropriate. And so this goes through each jurisdiction one at a time and gives that summary for each. So depending on what your project area of interest is, you can hone in on those areas. And then I'm going to jump to the last tool that we included, which is online conversations. Chelsea mentioned that we used social listening software in this tool, so we can help understand public perception. And we have dashboards included. Let's see. Here's an example of a social media dashboard with that information presented here that you can analyze. And those tools, you know, they're just going to tell you the themes, who are the influencers. They'll give you an idea of posting sentiment, some of your audience demographics, and that type of thing. So that is a really high-level overview of the tools. As you can see, there is a lot of information presented in the story map, but there's also a good deal of context provided and strategy. And so that invites further exploration for everyone who is working on their communication plan. And the goal is really to provide that head start. And so, yeah, I think that's a good overview. That's our trip down equity lane. And so I'll pass it over to Stacy now to wrap up with strategy.
Thanks, Vanessa. So in addition to providing information on who the overburdened community members are and where they are located, we wanted to provide everyone with a head start on how to reach and engage them. So we developed an overall table of about a dozen best practices for reaching community members who are overburdened, and that's included in the tool. And so these strategies range from reaching people where they already gather or where they already are, working with local community liaisons to co-create messages and provide interpretation and facilitation, conducting school-based outreach. So again, there's about a dozen of these strategies included. Then we went one step further, and we wanted to provide some examples showing those strategies applied in each of the partner jurisdictions, kind of unique to reaching their overburdened community members. So to provide an example of that, in Bremerton, we know one of their overburdened communities are folks with no internet access. They also have a high percentage of transit riders. And so to reach people with no internet access, we suggested that they include, and to reach low income community members, that they include pre-addressed and stamped project surveys in Bremerton food line boxes. We also suggested to reach people where they are. They have a large Filipino American community there. And so to reach people at an event at the Filipino American Community Center, for example. A couple examples in Port Orchard, to reach low income or apartment residents, we suggested that they partner with property managers to host an event or a coffee at the apartment complex, and to disseminate information through the main office. And I'll finish up with an example in Port Angeles. They have, to reach their Hispanic communities, we suggested promoting a survey or providing a link to information on Spanish social media or on Spanish radio. And also to reach people where they gather, to go to local events such as the Crab Fest or the Port Angeles Farmers Market. School-based outreach is another great example of how to reach overburdened populations as well. So those are some examples. We could go on for a long time. We have them all outlined in the tool. So you can dive into each of the partner jurisdictions to see the best practices and the examples for each jurisdiction. I think it goes to question and answers now, or who are we throwing it to now? Does it go back to Michelle?
We do have some questions in the chat box if you want to
Great.
start on those. We got a few minutes left here. The first question is from Andrea. As part of the scope to develop the story map, will the underlying data be updated periodically, or would that be part of a separate contracted project?
I think I can jump in on that one. You know, this is a brand new project for us and recently completed. So we're still answering some of the questions about how we're going to use the tool moving forward, how that's going to fit in, what the long-term updates and things like that are going to be. It definitely will have to be updated periodically. It's basically a snapshot right now. So we have in-house GIS folks that are going to take a look at, you know, the scope of whether they feel like they can do some of these updates going forward, or whether we'll need to contract that out again.
Thanks, Michelle. Our next question is from Kaz. Have you ever had to deal with people in the communities being mapped that are offended by the characterization of their community? Can you model some good language for a response?
So I'll answer that one because Vanessa and I do work like this across the country. And when we conduct these analyses, we're very mindful of taking data that is from the census, or we take data from American Community Survey, or whatever data sets we can find. But there's always a caveat that there is going to be some type of margin of error. And we use this information to best understand those who are there, with the understanding that we want to make sure we're utilizing every communication strategy possible to reach everyone. When it comes to the term specifically with Esri tapestry segmentation, we have received feedback in the past that it's language that doesn't necessarily represent everyone. And that's why we caveat that it is simply one tool that we use among many, many variables. So we try to be delicate with that, but my best recommendation would be have as many data sources as possible, so your analysis is as comprehensive as possible to reach all people and properly analyze and vocalize and include everyone.
Makes sense. Thanks, Chelsea. The next question is from Daniel. What's been the impact of the tool at Public Works and across the city?
Well, Daniel, I think that's still to be determined. We're rolling this out today at Municon. In a few more days, I'm going to be rolling this out to a lot of those partner agencies and departments that I discussed earlier. They're going to get their first demo here in just a couple of days and get a good look at it and see just where they can use it in their work as well. I can look at a tool like this and see that it has implications for, you know, not just stormwater, but a lot of different areas. So again, to be determined a little bit.
Thanks, Michelle. And a couple of comments and questions from Mary Rayburn. She says, great job. I would love to use that for King County planning and include ethnic media, DMA, and community-based orgs to partner on outreach. Is that part of your plan? And do you have audience research / social marketing practices recommended that really help improve outreach strategies?
Mary, definitely. I see this as a tool that's going to really partner with our use of social marketing strategies. So, you know, again, we're in the very, very early stages of being able to take this and see where we can apply it. So I can see that it's going to plug in there as well, really well. Looking down at your next question, we need this tool regionally. Why not partner for a single tool? I think that's a fabulous idea. And if anybody wants to seek out a gross grant, I think that this would be a great regional tool.
Thanks, Michelle. So that wraps up the questions we have. We have a couple of minutes left. If there's anything else you want to recap before we go from the panel. Otherwise, we thank you very much for joining us for this session. And if you have additional questions, please feel free to contact our presenters. Their contact information can be found in the program, and you can access that through the FeedLoop app. Thank you so much again for everyone for your time.